Church. We are getting ready to start our Arts Forum, and our Arts Forum occurs on every third Sunday, and the idea is to link the arts with social justice. This morning, we have the pleasure of having a dear friend and colleague, Jennifer Bowman from Houston Grand Opera, here to share with us about how social justice works with opera and how HGO uses social justice and opera in the community. So, Jennifer, please join us. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Good. I'm glad to be here. Really quickly, I'm Jennifer Bowman. I'm the Director of Community and Learning at Houston Grand Opera. I am a native Houstonian. I lived on the East Coast working for a lot of other arts organizations over the last 20 years, but I moved back to Houston 2 years ago. So it's wonderful to be home and to see your faces and just to see how much the city has grown. So people always wonder, and I have to wonder sometimes, about what classical music's role is when it comes to the idea of social justice and community building. To be frank, our art forum has not always been the most inviting and the most welcoming. Historically, there were a lot of traditions that were built out of systems of classism and elitism. But the music, in so many ways, is so beautiful that you look at now at the world of classical music, and it's more diverse than ever before in terms of audiences, in terms of artists, creators, the people who are supporting the art form as well. So with my role at Houston Grand Opera, it's really about supporting the community through the art form of opera. Okay, where are we? Next, you're on the strategic focus slide. Mission and vision values, okay. So just for you to know, Houston Grand Opera, and people are always a little surprised to hear about our mission, but it's to enrich our diverse community through the art of opera and to create, curate, explore, and produce outstanding experiences centered around the human voice, which is very general, which is good, which means there can be so many things that we add as part of that. We do that by creating profoundly enriching experiences for our diverse audiences and clearly defining and promoting the HGO brand. How do we do that? We do that through excellence, discovery, resilience, and community. Okay. Christian, if you mind playing this video on the 24-25 slide. Oh, no. Should be a click through. Shout out to Christian. I got my presentation to him at the last minute. So it's up, it's lovely that it's up. No. Okay, great. So that's a little information about Houston Grand Opera's season, but I can definitely share that with you later. So this is where we start to get into the idea of classical music and social justice being connected. So at its most crass and its most basic, Houston Grand Opera is a 501c3 organization that has a charitable status. And as many, if not all of you know, this is how the IRS defines those organizations. So at its core, our organizations are meant to be a part of the community and benefit the citizens of our community. So you'll also know, it's really interesting to see the way that the arts are funded in the United States, because it's not just we funding our own work, we are utilizing resources of the community, both the city, state, and national government. We're also getting lots of foundation money, so money coming from families. Our individual citizens are funding us. So as something that the community values in a lot of different ways, we have to, again, show our value to the community. Next slide. Just within your activities here in Houston, Houston has a hotel occupancy tax, which goes to a lot of organizations that are deemed to be part of tourism. So that's sports, that's arts, That is the dining industry. So again, even for people just visiting our city, our organizations, even at a small percentage, are benefiting from the activities of all of you, our citizens, and all of our visitors. So I share those very crass things to say that I don't believe that every great city deserves an opera company. I think that no, I just said that wrong. Every great city does not need a great opera company, but every opera company has to show what its value is to its community. If you look, this is the Forbes list of top 100 US charities. Typically the organizations that people are supporting and supporting in their volunteering, with their dollars, with their time, with their treasures, are domestic need, international need, education, public health organizations. Arts companies just on this top 100 list don't even come in until number 81 with the Metropolitan Museum Art and then the Smithsonian. But again, there are so many other great causes that people can be supporting. So how do we as the arts make sure that we are an integral part of our community? And I just put this fun fact because we always need to know about who Houston is, and another reason about why we have to serve this city in a very special and unique way. We are the 4th largest city in the country, you know. We speak over 150 languages, so if we only represent one of those languages, how many citizens are we leaving out of our work? And this fact was very interesting to me, that our median age here in Houston is 33.4, while in our opera audience, the median age is 63 at HGO. So again, which parts of the city are we representing and becoming an integral part of? A little more facts about Houston and how we are the city of the future and how every other city will be as diverse as we are in 2050. So that's something I think we should all herald. It's a wonderful thing about our city. So here's why all of that matters in connection to the arts. First of all, we at HGO, and me personally, and probably all of you, believe that the arts is for everyone, period. We don't have to put any big reasons behind it. We just know that this art form that's connected to so many parts of our culture, our history, our countries, wherever we are from, art has been such an integral part of our lives that we want everyone to be able to have access to it in some way. From a different background, we think of the fact that the US Surgeon General came out with a study about a year ago, basically telling people that there is a lack of connection, there's a huge epidemic of loneliness in our country. So the idea of having things that bring together community are even more important than they've ever been. The arts are for everyone. Next slide. Texas students with a higher arts engagement on average do better in school because they come to school, because they want to be at school. So again, this is another example about how arts really help bring together communities, even in our classrooms and our schoolhouses. Next slide. So I went to the dictionaries, as we all do, to learn about the different definitions of social justice, because I really wanted to think about how does classical music connect to these principles in some ways. And I think that the definition of social justice, as people understand it in my view, is that it's very specific and it's very radical and it's very this and very that. But just looking at these different definitions, you see it's really just about human beings being able to live a just life, a fair life, equity, equality, all of these things that we in the United States have said and believe that we want for every citizen. So how then do we as an arts organization, but a classical music organization, make sure that we are reflecting these values, but also helping to make sure other people get to live these values? Next slide. And that's when community and learning at Houston Grand Opera comes into play. And so my department is a community and learning department. They used to be known as HGO Co. Basically, it's Houston Grand Opera's community engagement and education arm. And in our view, we describe ourselves within the company as the people that connect the community to the opera, but also how we connect the opera to schools and our educators and our teachers. Not because we think opera is the best thing since sliced bread and everyone needs to sing opera and see Wagner, but we think of opera, actually I do think Wagner is really good, but but it's also because we see opera as this multidisciplinary art form that has so many opportunities to connect people both to what they want to learn about, what they're feeling, what they're dealing with in their lives, to human stories, again, the human voice, where people are communicating with each other. All these things are so important to our well-being and our existence, and what a great privilege it is to figure out how do we bring these strings together to be a tool for our community. Okay, Christian, does this next video work? Okay,
So if you click that link down at the bottom left.
No, the issue is that he doesn't have the videos in the system.
Oh,
Okay.
oops.
And if the video is not in the system, then it won't just. Yeah. So I will share these later. What this video is it's a 2-minute trailer that talks about the community and education programming we do at Houston Grand Opera. I did share, I think with everyone has a copy, and if not, we have some others about all of our community and learning programs at the opera. So in addition to bringing performances into schools and community centers, we also do large-scale performances. We have a series called Giving Voice that's hosted at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church that's celebrated during Black History Month. It's a celebration of Black artistry. And the really wonderful thing about that concert is because we partner with Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, a concert that could be 2,000 people in their cathedral, which is amazing, has now been seen by about 40,000 people because Wheeler also has the capability to stream, record, and for the performances to live on YouTube. So those types of strategic partnerships with Discovery Green, with other parks in the area, with the Houston Parks Board, who controls most of the parks in our region, so that allows us to get access to them, means that we can bring family programming, we can bring programming for youth to those areas that are really populous in our city. We also do a lot of programming, obviously, in our schools. Again, we are very clear, we are not here to replace music educators. I say that every day, because sometimes they'll be like, can you come in and teach this choir for us? And I said, I cannot, we will not. Please hire a choir teacher. But what we can do is we can bring the knowledge that we have, bring the skills that we show to singers, bring the social emotional skills that are also part of what we do in our work, and make sure that young people are learning about that on top of what their educators are showing them. We also think that it's very important for young people and people of all ages to have opportunities to be creative. So we have a few of our Create an Opera programs where young people from soup to nuts, the sets, the stories, the characters, the costumes, the script, they write the songs with composers. They're allowed to create something or create a presentation about a topic, a book, a subject that's important to them because, again, people need ways to communicate and share what they are feeling. And we think it's a great opportunity to do that. I want to do that program more with adults because I think adults need to share what they're feeling and also be creative. I think it's something that we lose once we're done being kids, and I think it's just really important. And I've seen the power of it, and I'm sure you've all seen the power of it in the lives of others. We do a number of community programs. Go to the next slide, Christian. Yeah, so a number of our community programs are in all of these areas of the city, working with these audiences. We think of public programming as things that are open to the public, that are free, that are easily accessible, that can bring large audiences. And then, of course, we're always trying to show our schools and our community organizations the fact that the opera industry, the arts industry, that there are careers and college options that are available in every level depending what your interest is. I keep hearing, actually, I will say about that area, we're hearing a lot about it right now from our youth development organizations, our schools, our corporations, colleges, in that they want young people to understand what they can do with their lives and all the possibilities. And a thing I always share with people is that in the arts, yes, you can go and be a singer. Of course, we need those people. We can't work without them. But you can also be the person who is sewing costumes in the shop, building the sets, painting this, painting that, the person who's into engineering, who's creating how the mechanisms on the stage will work. You can be someone who enjoys history, enjoys research, and you're a dramaturg, making sure that the things that happen within an opera, within a production are accurate to that time. There are so many possibilities of things that you can do that don't always require a college degree, that don't always require years and years of study. Sometimes it's on-the-job training, and we want to make sure young people especially understand that this is an industry where they can use their talents and their skills to do something great. Next slide. So I wanted to give you a sense of the partners that we work with in HGO. I call this the active partner list right now, and I've taken some people off where they're inactive. But again, when you think about the strings that are part of classical music, the stories, the music, the people, the culture, the history, it really does allow us to work with so many of these organizations that you're seeing here. And it's not arts organizations, it's not schools, just schools. We're working with libraries, we're working with parks, we're working, the Boys and Girls Club is a newer big partner that we're working with, and I'm very excited about that. But we're also working with some of our city and county government officials because there are a lot of services they want to provide to their citizens, and thankfully there are things that we have that are helpful in that regard. So very excited about those partnerships and then so many other ones. I talked to you already a little bit about our community engagement programs. So again, this is about really finding the intersection of opera and the community to serve the citizens. A big focus right now in our area, among many others, is the idea of people having areas to promote community health. So that's having access to libraries, having access to parks, having access to other spaces. And so what we can do then as an opera company is make sure that we are populating programming in those spaces in ways that the community wants us to. Never the idea of, here's an opera, you're welcome, thank you for coming. We really make sure that we're having conversations with our community leaders, with our community members, to ensure that anything that we're doing in these spaces are things that are actually vital and wanted by those community members. Next slide. And obviously another huge part of what we do is working with youth and families. You'll see this is going to become an even bigger part of what Houston Grand Opera does in the next few years, which I think is great. Because one, how did we all come to music in our lives? Is it school? Is it a parent? Was it a teacher? Was it someone that showed you something? And that's how you learned about the arts or learned about something that was interesting to you. So having these multi-generational opportunities for young people to engage in the art form, or having ways for their teachers to be able to help them engage with an art form, it's how most of us end up in this industry in the first place. So without those opportunities, who knows what will happen to the future of the art form. Next slide. So similarly, as I said, schools, educators. The other important thing about that educator piece is with the arts coming out of many of our under-resourced schools, it's one of the first things on the chopping block, obviously. Our teachers are not having access to the resources that can add another layer to helping children gain their education. I remember singing songs in science class and Schoolhouse Rock and things that helped me with my times tables, that were songs or like beating drums or that type of thing. And if teachers don't have those tools, it's another thing that's left out of that toolbox to make sure that the kids are finding interesting ways to connect what they are learning to something else that they may love. So we're also trying to work with teachers to make sure they know, even if there isn't a music program or an arts program in your school, there are still ways that you in your classroom can connect the arts to what you're doing. Next slide. I'll send you all these videos, I promise. That video there was an example of, we had an opera that came out last year called Intelligence. It was written by Jake Heggie and Jean Shear. This production was directed by Jawole Wilajosa-Lar, who was the founder and our first artistic director of amazing modern dance company called Urban Bushwomen. And so we brought the opera to Houston. There were a lot of questions about this piece and if Houston was going to respond well to an opera about a black woman and a white woman who were Civil War spies for the Union because slavery, and all these other like big topics. Yeah, slavery. So what my team's responsibility was, was to figure out how do we make connections to this opera for our community in ways that are interesting to them, not in the, it's an opera, you should show up. It's not what we wanted to do. So we worked on strong partnerships with that. We talked to the Buffalo Soldiers National Museum. We worked with Rice University. We worked with one other organization I'm forgetting at the moment, but we hosted public conversations, Houston Ballet. We hosted public conversations dealing with the topics of these operas, whether it's Jake Heggie, our composer, talking about how he collects stories and selects stories that he uses to tell the stories of operas. The talk we did at the Buffalo Soldiers Museum was about whose stories are told and why are so many left out when we're thinking about what we know about our nation, and that was a really great space to be able to do that. We were also, thanks to some funding, had the opportunity to bring about 1,400 students to see the opera at the Wortham, and that gave us, because funding, everything was funded, food, transportation, tickets, they got little swag bags. Because all that was funded, one, they got the experience of being like a VIP at the opera. We were able to provide them with learning materials where we got to talk about, you know, code breaking and history, American history, and these women as like important figures in American history. And so there was a learning that happened, as some of those stories are not always being told in our Texas schools anymore. And they had this opportunity to experience the arts in a different way. For a lot of the students in that room, it was their first time in the theater district or downtown. It was their first time at the Wortham, let alone their first time at the opera. So in that way, what we can do and what's really important is provide access in different ways to communities that may have never felt invited to be a part of opera and these experiences in the past. And I'll say this, in all of my access and wanting people to feel invited and come, I always tell the kids, I'm okay if you hated it. Just tell me why you hated it, let's talk about it. I just want anyone to be able to have the experience to walk through those doors or to see our singers out in the community and make a judgment about it for themselves. So that's really one of the most important things about what we do. Next slide. I mentioned to you already the idea of college and careers and how important that is. And again, from a perspective of social justice, for people to know that there are these opportunities for them in the world to be something great connected to any number of things. And you see this list and you see if you're a writer, if you are a person who's into science, if you love costume design, if hair and makeup, all of these things that are your special gifts, your special talents, they're opportunities. And we want people to know that they're there and we want them to be able to access it. Next slide. I wanted to tell you a little bit about this example at the bottom. So again, how we think about our public programming are ways that we connect the community to opera and something that's important to them. So this panel photo right there, during the Sound of Music, we had a conversation that was about how does the topics of the Sound of Music resonate with us today, just as they resonated in the past. And so we were able to welcome this woman on the right side, that's Miss Ruth Steinberg. So she is a Holocaust survivor who's been in Houston for over 40, 50 years now. But she goes to the Holocaust Museum every week and tells her story. And again, she and a few others make sure that Houstonians, that young people, that anyone walking through those doors understand that this was not that long ago, and that it's important for us to, never forget. So for us to be able to bring her in to truly connect the story of the sound of music and what it means now and what it means then was very powerful. We had about 125 people at that event, including college students, high school students, general public, and educators. So what all that I've shared with you today is that for us at the Opera, for me as the leader of the Community and Learning Department, all we should be doing is making sure that we are finding ways that the community can connect to what we're doing, that we have value to the community, because if we do not, we won't survive. And we don't do it out of just a sense of survival. We do it as this is a way for us to truly be a part of this community, just as you all do your best to be part of the community as well. So it's a really important role and, again, a responsibility that we have as a company. So any questions? Thank you.
Would we look at the website to see where things are happening?
Yes,
Okay.
at hgo.org. And yeah, what I've supplied for you today, this is just some information specifically about our community programs, and we have more copies of them. But yes, you go to the website to learn about dates and times, and Dr. Rock has my contact information, so if you ever have questions for me directly, I'm happy to answer them. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you. Hmm?
Jim had a question.
Oh, Jim, please.
When it went from HBO to HBO Go, they started putting together educational materials for teachers, or are those available anywhere?
They're available on our website. Yeah, if you go to our community and learning pages, we call them study guides, but we try to make sure it's things that are connected to the operas that we're going to do specifically for youth that season. And we try very hard to make sure it's connected to a lot of different areas of the curriculum so that, again, so teachers have a use for it. Anything else? Okay.
I just want to say thank you so much to Jennifer for being here this morning. We always have a small group here, but it's small, it's powerful, because they will go out and they will talk to other people and let them know what's going on.
No,
so
thank
we
you.
were just grateful that you all were able to come and to share what you're doing.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming.